Okay, so a few months ago I made a video about what happens to boats when they're left by the owners over the winter, and I talked a little bit about what goes on board, but one of the comments I got after that video was from a chap called Paul Sweeney, and it's quite a long question, so I'm not going to read all of it. I'll put it up on the screen so you can pause the video and read it yourself. But he said he was very informative. However, I believe he didn't emphasize enough about when the owner leaves the boat, is there still a strict protocol on board? By that I mean, I know most stuff would go through the captain, but the language, the friendliness of the crew, etc., is it more relaxed? Also, who decides to get leave first? It goes on a little bit longer. I'll put it on the screen, like I said. Some other questions I got as well, which made me think, okay, I didn't really make that clear enough. So, okay. So what happens on board when the boss leaves? So you still have a crew on board. A functional crew is still on board. You still have a chef who's a crew chef. Generally, the owner has a chef that travels with him. You know, when he arrives on board, he usually arrives with a small entourage of people, like a trainer, chef, butler, maybe, depending on the family, a nanny. He's got kids, things like that. Personal assistant. He brings a chef with him. So for the crew, they have their own chef, a crew chef who lives on board as part of the crew. The crew have daily work like normal, 8 till 5, and the captain dictates, the rules, everything like that. The boat's laid up, so they're not going anywhere as such. But there is still a functional crew on board. It's still a hierarchy, it always is. Yes, it's more relaxed. You don't have the stress of the owner being on board. So people are more chilled out. The working hours are shorter. You're more regular, like I said, 8 till 5, whatever. Whereas when the boss is on, it's basically, you still have your structured hours, but depending on your job, you might be working a lot more hours than you do normally. But sometimes, especially just after a boss trip, everybody's exhausted, and you might get a couple of days off, so that's nice. So the other part of the question was, who decides who gets the leave first? Well, I mean, obviously the captain decides on all the leave ultimately. Whoever gets the leave first, usually it's a first come first served basis. Generally they'll give it to you when the boat's laid up. They have to have minimum manning. They have to have enough people to move the vessel if for any reason they need to move that vessel. But they can rotate people for leave. Some of the people who haven't accrued any leave can actually take unpaid leave if they don't have any leave to take, so they can still go home if there's no work for them to do, and they can still get some time off even though they won't be getting paid for it. But yeah, generally the atmosphere on board is much more relaxed. A lot of maintenance gets done at that time, stuff that you can't do when the boss is on board. A lot of carpet cleaning in the guest areas, which you can't do when the boss is on board. Maintenance of the equipment that's in those areas, air conditioning, AV equipment, maybe the IT network needs to be done, VSAT antennas for the internet, TV antennas, all that kind of stuff can get done in those times. Also, you might go into dry dock over the winter to get some of the stuff that needs doing that you can't do when the boat's in the water, stabilizers, shaft bearings for the propellers, things like that. Painting, anti-fouling, which is a type of paint that's painted onto the hull, stops things sticking to the hull, stuff like that. I can get done in the dry dock, and various other things. All that kind of stuff, obviously you can't do when the boss is on board. So you might be able to see on this boat here, Galaxy of Happiness, you might be able to see out on the deck there, they've got all kinds of chemicals. This is a guest area, obviously. Everything can be covered is covered. The table and stuff where the owner would eat is all covered with canvas. And there's some maintenance going on there. The other thing that might be doing is the teak decks. They can be sanded and recoated. That kind of stuff. All that can't be done obviously when the owner's on board. It's a lot more chilled. You get your evenings off. You can relax internet rules, because when the owner's on board, even if he's got relatively high speed, 10-20 megabytes, which is fast for VSAT. If you want to know more about internet speeds and costs and stuff like that, I did a video. I'll put a link below and you can look at that. It's pretty fascinating. It tells you more about how the ship works, how it uses internet, etc. But anyway, when he's not on board, usually what happens is the internet speed gets reduced. So even if the owner's on board, he wants 15 megs. As soon as he leaves, that gets dropped back down to, like, say 4 megs. And then the crew, but the restrictions on that network can be lifted, and the crew can, maybe use YouTube. And also in the marina, maybe not these berths here because they're only for small boats, but in the marina here, you'll have internet connection, and then you can get like up to 100 megs like you do at home. And then the crew can do whatever they want, Netflix and all that kind of stuff. So they love that when they're in those situations. And you can see here that they're hooked up to, the blue one is fresh water. These other cables here, the 3 cables there, that's the electricity. So they're hooked up to shore power. Another thing that can happen when the owner's not on board is, in the evenings, the crew can go ashore. So when the owner's on board, you can't go ashore, even if the boat's in port and the owner's on board. You're all working, you all got a job to do, so generally you can't go ashore. So that could be for a couple of months, could be for your whole rotation. Okay guys, hope you've enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up if you have. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you next time.